of the rim. Got it! Oh, the slam foul! Using Curry way downtown. Oh, what a shot from Curry!
Fouls. Oh boy, this is fun. This season is fun, isn't it? Let's look at some numbers because there's a lot being made about fouls right now and how they affect teams and players in the league overall. Look at some numbers. You can see that the 22 season is nearly identical to the 21 season in personal fouls per game. That's not the only thing we're looking at, but that's just one of the stats. 19.5 this year, 19.3 last year. So a 0.2 of a point change different in personal fouls. That's not significant. That's really not that big of a number. If you look at free throw attempts per game, 2022 is the lowest in NBA history so far. It's only a couple of games that's been like through the first week, but we can see the change with our own eyes and the numbers reflect that. It is down 1.8 from last year. So the 2021 season was the third lowest fouls per game in history up to this point, and 2022 was on track to be the lowest. We'll see if it lasts because I have my suspicions. Then if you wanted to look at the free throw rate, I believe we are down 0.26% from last year, so take that how you will. So it's a very interesting thing going on. You know, during the mid 2000s there were a change in how fouls were called. It gave the advantage to offensive players. I think it got pretty out of control to the point that people were looking to exploit the rules. But the last 5 or 6 years, you could grab people's arms, you could just kind of flail into them, you could kick them, and then the foul would be called on the defensive player. Well, thus far, you can see that there is a difference. And it's interesting because coming into the year, people were like, oh yeah, this player is going to be affected, this player is going to be affected. However, there's been a lot of adjustment. Guys are really not struggling that badly with it, except one. There is a guy out there that is still clearly trying to foul bait, and it's not working anymore, and his numbers look worse off for it. But we're gonna get to that because I think there's more than just the foul change that's affecting said person. I don't think it's fair to just say that, oh, fouls aren't being called and now he sucks. We'll get to that point. But just to set it up for the record, I've watched already, I just watched so much basketball this year. I've been to basically all the national TV games. I've been watching all the national TV games, watching League Pass games. And for the games I can't watch, I am all over the highlights. Shout out to the people on YouTube providing those. But for the games that I have watched, you can actually see the difference in the fouls that are called. And it's so much different, in fact, that it seems that some real fouls are slipping through the cracks. Now, if you look at the numbers I just presented, you can see it's not some gargantuan difference. Maybe the 1.8% change, there's not percent, the 1.8, what was it, free throw attempts? Yeah, the 1.8 change in the free throw attempts, given the numbers that we're working with, that might be that's a pretty good drop, but everything else isn't some crazy outlier. And so it's interesting because when you watch games, the biggest change you see is what the NBA set out to change. The ones where guys are baiting, where they're just like, this right here, you know what I'm talking about, right? Guy takes the ball into somebody and their body's touching it, just, oh my gosh. Yeah, they're not calling those right now. They're not calling those. You try to hook the dude, they're not calling those. You kick the guy, they're not calling those. Tic-tac fouls, they're really, so far as what I can see, maybe you see something different, but it doesn't even seem that they're calling those. That's my favorite part because I hated stopping the game every time two players touched. Every time they're just dribbling and there's some incidental contact, there's a tweak. I hated that. I don't have stats to back up how much that was actually happening. Maybe I was just so annoyed that I thought it was happening more than it actually was. However, I see the difference. So they've nipped that part in the bud, and they're also, or because of that, there are some fouls going unnoticed. However, I'm not sure how big that number is. There have definitely been some where the guys drive to the rim and they've gotten hacked, didn't see it called, or they get the ball stolen from them and I didn't see that called. There are definitely some slipping through the cracks, but I would rather, because again, as we see by the numbers, it's not some crazy difference. I would rather a couple of those per game slip through the cracks so that we can kill the tic-tac fouls rather than reverting to trying to over officiate and then we get the tic-tac fouls back. I wonder if they're going to be able to, throughout the whole season, draw the line. I wonder if they're going to be able to keep it kind of where it is now, where there's not so much slipping through, but you're also not calling the old bullshit. So yeah, just by the eye test, there's a very clear difference. That leads to a guy like, well, that leads to a narrative. I don't know if you call it a narrative, but it leads to the talking point that James Harden doesn't look as good as he has so far, as he has throughout his career. It looks crazy. We look at some Harden stats. It has been a total of 5 games. He is averaging 16.6 points, very far down from his 24 game last year. He's shooting 33% from 3. He's shooting 35% from the field, down from 47 last year. By the way, while he's still taking the same amount of field goals, pretty much 15 this year compared to 16 last year. And as far as free throw attempts, good God almighty, he got 7 free throw attempts per game last year. He's got 3 this year. That is by far, and I mean by far, the lowest of his career. It has not been that low since he was a rookie in this league when he averaged 3.2. Okay, so I'm not gonna spend this video trying to avoid talking about James Harden because I could just go on and talk about fouls in the league, but it's clearly a thing here. We've heard Steve Nash say that he feels like he's being targeted. We see people starting to look around and say, hey, he looks bad without his fouls. And I've watched just about every Nets game so far. I don't think I've actually missed a Brooklyn Net game. So I'll tell you what I see. Yes, James Harden, look, he's been doing these things that get him fouls for the last however long he's been elite. That's been a gigantic part of his game. And so it's not even something that he can just break in a week. He can't just go, oh, the league changed the rules, I have to stop doing this now. I think it's very ingrained into how he plays basketball. And I say that because he's still trying it. There was a whole thread last night of him in the Heat game trying to draw the same fouls he drew last year. And I almost think it's by habit because that's just how he's been playing. I don't think any of them got called. I don't think any of these got called. Yeah, he's definitely doing the flail thing. It's not working. I've seen him try to kick out since game 1. That has rarely worked. Yeah, a lot of what he does to get free throws hasn't worked. And that's what's had people in a bind for the last how many ever years that he's been elite. The big threat with Harden, especially when he was on Houston and he had shooters everywhere, was god damn, bro, there was a time where people were guarding him with hands behind their back because that's how prone you were to fouling him. We even saw Thanasis do it this season for the couple minutes that he guarded him in the one game that they played. Yeah, you had to invent ways to play Harden, playing him to a certain side because he was so good at shooting threes that you can't really give that up. You might think a step back or a side step three is a bad shot, but he was making those, so okay, we got to kind of play him close. But if we play him close, he drives by us, he hooks us, or he gets a foul called. So how close can we really play him? And then if all else fails, he's now collapsed the defense enough to throw a lob to, well, for a while it was Capella down there, and then of course they got rid of Capella, but just for a very long time, that's why it was impossible to guard Harden. The threat of fouls added to the skill that he had, and it just made him one of the best offensive players ever. So this season, with what I see from Harden, I would tell you just a totally unbiased opinion. Not a Nets fan, you already know. I don't appreciate that the Nets had a super team coming into this year. I did not really want to see the super team ruin the next 3 years of basketball. With Kyrie out, that's not a thing. So no bias here, but I think it's more than just the fouls that's affecting him. That is affecting him 100%. He's only attempting 3 per game, but he also just does not look the same at the moment. He does not look in shape, which by the way, it's not the first season he's come into a year out of shape. It's happened before. Because of that, I don't think he's getting downhill quite the way he could. If you watch how Harden plays, he's never just been a full slasher. That's been a part of his game, but been a lot of finesse and skill to his game that's allowed him to slash. He's never just been a full-time, I'm gonna get to the rim always and ruin your life in the paint. It already really wasn't like that. He mixed in a lot of different things there, but because he's not in the best shape, he's not even getting that part of the game right now, which is definitely contributing to him not getting fouls. And he just doesn't look that aggressive or explosive, which also leads to him not going downhill as much. It was really the first thing I noticed. It was before it became an actual topic. I was watching game 1. I was like, okay, whatever, it's just game 1, but then game 2 happens and I'm just kind of waiting for it to happen, but I'm noticing he's just not really doing the things or even attempting the things. Aside from the fouls, just in his playstyle, he's not really attempting all the same things he regularly does. So in his words, I just saw a story come out. He's saying that basically saying he's not healthy. He came into the summer rehabbing. That's what we're going with, which makes sense. He hurt the hamstring. He tried to play through the hamstring in the playoffs. Really hasn't been relatively that long. Then he tried to play USA basketball, which was crazy to me. He dropped out of that. I didn't know how that was going to work. So he was saying, I didn't get to play pickup during the summer. I rehabbed through most of it. And I think you can see that. I think that is definitely a part of it. But it is 1,000% that's the right hand and the left hand is the foul baiting. So out of shape, foul baiting, coming together. The foul baiting does not work. Out of shape doesn't help. This right here, it doesn't look good. It's going to be interesting to see as he works himself into shape this year, how it ends up looking, because I have to think it's going to be better than this. I refuse to believe we're already at the decline of Harden. How old is he? Oh, he's 32 years old. That's not that old. That's really not that old, but it's also at a point where you start to say, okay, 33, 34, that's where you will understandably see some guys drop off. But this hard though, from last year, 24 points a game to what, 15 or 16? I don't think we're going to finish with 15 or 16 out of Harden. If we do, then woo. Because you will get into shape throughout the season. You'll play yourself into shape. Again, I think we saw that happen to him in 2016. I remember he came into, I believe it was a 2016 season, or maybe, yeah, it had to be 16. The year the Rockets did not do that good. He came in, just had horrible games to start. Then by the time he finished, he had put up like a historic season. So I got to think it'll look better, but when this part does look better, when the shape looks better, but there's still no foul baiting, that's what I want to see. That's the product that I want to see with Harden. But as far as it targeting him, because you're looking at other guys, they tried to make, over the summer, they were saying Steph was going to be a poster boy for it. From what I can remember, Steph tried it once in a preseason game, and that was really all I've seen. He's not shooting as well this season so far. We know that part is definitely going to go up, but he's not shooting as well this season, and he still just got player of the week. His team is winning, so nobody cares about that. Luka is still getting his numbers. Trae Young looks like he's adapted. That leaves a spotlight solely on Harden, who in the shape just doesn't help it, because it's very easy to say fouls are just killing him and nobody else. I don't think it's totally fair, but I also will say, like, to the allegations that he's being targeted, well, once again, just look at the Heat game last night, which I also watched. You can go one route and say they're absolutely just targeting him, but he's also still trying the same things. Those are just habits that have got to break. But I also watched other plays throughout that game that happened to the Miami Heat that I thought were fouls on the Nets that didn't get called. And it's been like that through the tons of games that I watch. I just hop into a random League Pass game and I see some contact that would have got a tweak last year, and it just doesn't. Overall, whatever the intricacies of this are, what you think about it, I think it's making the game better. When a guy just gets hacked across his arm or shoulder right here, yeah, I think you should call that. There are a couple of those I've seen let go. Eventually you're gonna have to call those, because if your team loses a playoff game because he got hit all across his chest and just nothing got called, come on now. At that point, make a new rule book. So if that gets too out of hand, I see them correcting that. But for the rest of it, this is great, man. This is great. I've been saying forever, right? I think there was a way to draw fouls. Like, there's drawing fouls and there's baiting fouls. So back in the day when you would see Paul Pierce and Dwayne Wade do the pump fake and a guy would draw or fly towards them, really, I honestly think Pierce was the best at it. Pierce didn't always just completely go all out of shape and all out of sorts to draw the foul. He would just do a pump fake and the guy would come towards him and he would just take the contact. I think players just took that and built on it and built on it and built on it, and to the point where they're jumping at the guy. I've been saying for years, that was a very common sense thing to get the fuck out of the game, and they've done it. Because of that, the basketball is more fun to watch. Because of that and the other fouls that they've nipped, the basketball is more fun to watch. The pace is better. We're not stopping to shoot some free throws every other play, which again, by the numbers, it's only down a little bit, but I guess it's with the types of calls that they're making. If you're watching these games, you can see a difference in the types of calls. And so we'll see what happens. Right now, it seems most fans are happy with it. I do see some tweets out there every now and then about it, but most people seem to be happy with how this is going. I'm just waiting for the correction at this point. We're about a week into the season, or a week and a half or whatever. I'm waiting to see if they correct it. I just hope that they don't overcorrect it. That's all I ask. Whatever adjustments they make to the changes they've made, just don't overcorrect it. And I'll keep a watchful eye over what's happening with James Harden, because this just, it really won't be good for his career regardless. You've been following me long enough to hear the thing I always say: everything in life is optics. And the optics for the casual fan, or just really the NBA fan in general that isn't watching every single game, will be, especially in history, it'll be, hey, that was the year that they stopped calling bullshit fouls. Look how far his points dropped. That is the only thing anybody's going to look at. Shape and injuries will not be taken into account, even if it's unfair. But that's the thing, it's almost not that unfair, because as I've said probably 2 times in the video now, he is absolutely still trying the things that don't work. So we'll see, man. We're at the we'll see stage. It's only been 5 games, plenty of basketball left to be played. Definitely does not help the Nets either that Kyrie isn't there, obviously, but now it really doesn't help, because if you watch every Nets video I've made up to this point, I was talking under the assumption that we were getting a regular Harden. I was like, oh, okay, Kyrie is out, Harden can just be full-time Houston type point guard again, and it's nothing like that at the moment. It's I was not considering the effects of a hamstring at all. Wasn't considering the lack of aggression. I didn't see most of this coming, so we'll see what happens. Let me know what you think about the foul calls so far in the season. Let me know what you think about James Harden. If you've actually watched his games, do you get the same impression that it's a combination and not just the fouls? Leave all that in the comment section below. Hack the like button, subscribe, and hack the bell next to my name if you want notifications every time a new video drops. Appreciate you watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.